Hi, you're listening to Dusk to Dawn, reading horror and weird fiction. We're your hosts, Amber and Dan.
Follow us on Instagram at Dusk to Dawn Podcast. Please rate our show wherever you're listening, and let's get started. Good afternoon. Today we are reading The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. In fact, we already read it. We're actually just talking about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If we get to the point with that we're reading it while we record, we'll know that we're really far behind and need to reevaluate our lives.
Sometimes it feels like that, though. What was it, last one? I think I finished it like an hour before we recorded. So
yes, that was a Natural History of Hell, which was great.
Yeah,
and you had it fresh on your mind.
So fresh.
Of course, it was short stories, so you just had the last story or two fresh on your mind, and you had forgotten the earlier ones.
Yeah, because short stories are hard for me. That's okay.
I'm excited about this book because I've wanted to read it for a few years now. It came out in 2016. I don't know if I knew about it then. I feel like it's been on my radar for maybe like 3 or 4 years, something like that. And it takes one of the worst Lovecraft stories. I'm really sad that this is the Lovecraft story that you read. There's a lot of issues with this man, but they're much better starting points.
Well, that's your fault.
It's true. I suggested this episode, I think. Or we were both like, yeah, we want to read this. I think this might have been...
You brought it up.
Yeah.
But I think I had purchased it. Or did you buy it? It was on our bookshelf.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I feel like
I think we bought it at Moonstruck, or what's the place downtown? It's not Moonstruck.
Moonstruck.
I know. I always do.
Moonstruck is the publisher.
I know.
Mid-Slumber
Mid-Slumber
is the horror bookstore in Northeast Portland.
Yeah, I think I bought it when we were there. I think we might have both seen it and just been like,
they're
let's
like
get
not
that.
Even close.
Well, they both start with M's.
I guess the second section of the word starts with S.
Mid-Slumber. It's enough to confuse me every single time.
Nighttime.
Okay. Anyhow, so this novella, The Ballad of Black Tom, was written in response to the H.P. Lovecraft short story, The Horror at Red Hook, which is fine. I mean, you get a lot of what's going on with Lovecraft. This isn't a Cthulhu mythos story, which is kind of lame, but you get sort of the same vibes where great big old buried gods are making people go insane. There's a lot of Lovecraftian elements of this, including quite a bit of bigotry. Very anti-immigrant. Yeah, so let's go right into the book description. Do you want to read it? Should I read it? Do you care?
I'll read it because you know more about the author. So why don't you
this
talk about him?
description is the one that is with the book, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, and sometimes it's fun to see because we read one recently, and
yeah, we had one or two books where I took the book description, like the publicist book description, and
was it Fever House?
It might have. I'm not sure, but it was like either incorrect information or not quite right.
It wasn't that it wasn't right, but it was just an interesting way to phrase it, and it was very clearly not written by the author.
Oh, that's right.
It was like disconnected, but it wasn't bad. It was just, was it? I don't think it was Fever House.
I think you might.
Regardless.
There's been a couple times. There's been once where there was incorrect information, and then I think with Fever House, what it was is the description was like accurate, but did not capture the batshit crazy.
No, it wasn't that.
Of it.
I think it was what we just read.
Natural History of Hell?
Yeah, because it just listed the stories.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's what it was. And it was like, oh, yes, I guess technically that is what this book is about, but it didn't capture tone or voice at all.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad we solved that mystery.
This one, on the other hand, is pretty good. Take it away.
Great. Let's see. Let's see if I believe you. People move to New York looking for magic, and nothing will convince them it isn't there. Charles Thomas Tester hustles to put food on the table and keep the roof over his father's head, working from Harlem to Flushing Meadows to Red Hook. He knows what magic a suit can cast, the invisibility a guitar case can provide, and the curse written on his skin that attracts the eye of wealthy white folks and their cops. But when he delivers an occult tome to a reclusive sorceress in the heart of Queens, Tommy Tester opens a door to a deeper realm of magic and earns the attention of the things best left sleeping. A storm that might swallow the world is building in Brooklyn. Will Black Tom live to see it break? Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I like that.
So Victor LaValle is the author of the short story collection Slapboxing with Jesus, which is a pretty cool name.
That's an amazing name. Because slapboxing is a type of music, right? Like a
is it
instrument?
Oh, I was just imagining like slapping each other, but in boxing
in a box
pose.
Oh, okay.
I don't know though.
I imagine like playing music.
Oh, you could be. Wait, isn't that a squeeze box? Now I'm thinking of The Who.
Oh, slapboxing, yeah, is fighting.
But slapping the shit out of each other?
Yeah.
He's also written novels like The Ecstatic Big Machine, The Devil in Silver, and The Changeling, as well as 2 novellas, including The Ballad of Black Tom. He is also the creator and writer of the comic book Victor LaValle's Destroyer, which I have at the library right now. Sounds really cool. It's a reimagining of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, so you know it's going to be better than the original. At least Amber will think that. It's a reimagining of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in a modern socio-political context following a monster who seeks vengeance against humanity, particularly after his creator's descendant loses her son to police violence.
I read that.
Yeah, you would, and you'd probably like it better than the original. He has been the recipient of numerous awards, including the 2016 Shirley Jackson Award for this novella, The Ballad of Black Tom, the American Book Award, a bunch of others, and also he got the key to Southeast Queens, so that's pretty cool.
The key to the city.
He was raised in Queens, and he now lives in Washington Heights with his family and teaches at Columbia University. And this line was from his bio, which I very much feel myself. He can be kind of hard to reach, but he still loves you.
Aw.
So that's how I feel.
That's heartwarming.
Yeah.
I love that he won a Shirley Jackson Award. Just want to give a shout out. We've read a number of Shirley Jackson Award nominated and winning stories. And I don't think they've announced their picks this year yet, but I've seen some buzz around their social media and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, so far that award has definitely been, I've liked all the books we've read that have won that or been nominated for it. So keep up the good work, guys. You're giving us good stuff. Something I want to mention about the author, I want to talk about him a little bit more because we're also going to talk a little bit about H.P. Lovecraft and some of what's going on here with the Ballad of Black Tom. So I'll start with LaValle. By the time he was 10 or 11, he was a precocious kid. He had been reading the Cthulhu mythos, like all of them, which is really quite a large number of stories. I have a H.P. Lovecraft a Cthulhu mythos like collection, and it's, I don't know, 400, 500 pages long with small type. So I haven't even read all those stories. But anyway, he read those. He loved him. The 4 foundational authors for LaValle were H.P. Lovecraft, Shirley Jackson, Clive Barker, and Stephen King. And Lovecraft, of those 4, was the oldest and the weirdest. So he just really got into it. But here's what's really fascinating. When he was 10 or 11, he would read over the blatantly racist caricatures that H.P. Lovecraft would include in his book. All non-white characters, of course. He would just kind of like read over that and like, whatever, I'm here for the crazy monster shit, right? But then when he revisited the stories, or just as he got older, when he was like 15 or 16, he's like, wait, what did you just say? Reading some Oh,
it's like it clicked for him?
Yeah.
How racist it was?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Wow.
Like, when you're 10 or 11, racism might not even be a word, I mean, he was a precocious kid, so he did. But whether he overlooked
shut it out,
or was just, it's different. But then when he got older, it's like, oh, damn, this guy like really doesn't like black people or anybody who isn't white and European. But I also really like his story.
European was not necessarily considered white in his time either. So
wait, what?
Like Italians and Irish people.
Oh,
were
right. Yeah, right. Yes.
Barely.
Yeah.
Were not considered white.
Right. Yeah. I mean, from aristocratic, like Europe, his family, I believe, was from Devonshire, England, is what I.
Well, there you go. Yeah. If you're English, then.
Yeah. Yeah. European is being too inclusive. You're right. So another thing that was cool was LaValle, as a precocious reader, like a 10 or 11-year-old who had read a bunch of stuff, he felt like, why do the adults in my life get to tell me what to do? Because I'm pretty sure I'm smarter than them. Which is
nice.
Like,
get it, dude. Get it.
You know, pretty egotistical. But also, if you're reading that much at that age, like, yeah, you're going to be pretty smart. And there's a lot of adults who don't read anything. So, regardless of that, he felt the pressure of bigger forces trying to control his life when he felt like he had more knowledge than those forces, right? And so that's definitely a
teenager.
That's a teenager. So he wanted to respond to the horror at Red Hook. So let's talk a little bit about that. You just read that story. What are your thoughts? And this is the story by H.P. Lovecraft.
I had a hard time staying awake because I was so frustrated. My body was trying to shut down. It was a story. By the time it got any interesting at all, I was already fed up because it was introduce character, be incredibly racist about New York, and then tell story. So it was absolutely unnecessary how long he driveled on about how gross Red Hook neighborhood was because it's full of immigrants and these low lives, and it's just ugh.
Yeah, some quotes from Horror at Red Hook. The population is a hopeless tangle and enigma. He describes one character as an Arab with a hatefully negroid mouth, which is quite racist. And the most that could be gathered was that some god or great priesthood had promised them unheard of powers and supernatural glories and rulerships in a strange land. And this is talking about why there's all this weird stuff happening in the tenements, because these mixed non-white immigrants are being promised power from evil. And so, of course, they're going to take it.
Because
So this
it's a one-way street, right? Like, and the thing that I kept thinking about too when he was describing the neighborhood itself, and I just kept screaming it to myself in my head, or screaming it to Lovecraft in my head, was, well, why the fuck do you think these neighborhoods look like that? Because of racism. Because you put people in a box and then keep them there, and they have no way to get anything better. Like, of course it's going to be a shithole. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Oh, so mad. So for me, the story, by the time it picked up, I was so divested that I didn't even really follow it very well. If
Fair
I'm
enough.
being totally honest, it was kind of a wash.
Yeah, which is too bad, because it did have some cool elements of what he would later get better at. And like, this is one of those stories where he's explicit about his racism and his xenophobia, where like one of my favorite stories is Shadows over Innsbruck, which we watched the movie adaptation Dagon, where it's like fish people. And like fish people are kind of his thing. Yeah, it was super cool. But that's like, people are degrading and devolving, which
Can
clearly,
imagine which people.
clearly like plays into his racism, but it's not as explicit. It's just like people are devolving. So I don't know. It's a little tricky. So Horror at Red Hook does introduce us to Detective Malone and Robert Sidon, who are two main characters in the Ballad of Black Tom. A quick backstory of where the genesis of the Horror at Red Hook came for Lovecraft. He was very precocious. By the time he was like 5 or 6, he was reading and writing poetry. He just read a bunch at a very young age. I think by the time he was 7, his first, the oldest extant writing that's available from him is an 88-line retelling of the Odyssey. He also read a bunch of, he was all into science. What was it? Like, I think like astronomy, and I forgot several different disciplines and like engineering and stuff. He ended up publishing an astronomer's or a physicist's like newsletter when he was 8 or 9, so he was like publishing and reading and writing a bunch before he was 10 years old. He lived a pretty sad life. When he was 5 or so, his dad was put into a sanatorium for just like nervousness and mental breakdown and possibly syphilis as well. His family did not tell him why his dad was there, and he was never able to visit him. So he just like felt this great big absence. And then so Lovecraft lived with his mom and his aunts and his grandfather. And at first they were in a mansion, and the grandfather made a bunch of money, and they were like, aristocratic. And then what is often the origin story for a lot of virulently racist people is the family fortune just like went away. So I think the grandpa died, the money was mismanaged, and he went from a mansion into like a tight apartment or like a small building. So as a child, he very keenly felt that like the family fortune had been lost and that he had fallen, right? And so you
got to put someone else down below you, right?
Right, yeah. And this
Can't
is
be at the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah, I just was reading an interesting article about the Nazis talking about like, not to like do a huge hard right there, but anyway, but it's talking about like how Hitler and a lot of the top Nazis were from middle class backgrounds, but then and had like fallen from aristocratic heights. So there's that sense of like, we have fallen and now there are immigrants here. So somehow it's their fault. Anyway.
Well, that's actually a big point there, because that's why a lot of people say World War I never really ended, because they just demolished Germany's economy and wiped out any kind of profit or anything. They couldn't rebuild, and so they were just so angry that they were like, fuck everyone else. And that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah, and you don't want to say like, what have I done to get myself in this horrible situation? And then you can
blame the Jews. They're the money grubbers, so it's their fault. Let's take their money. I mean,
yes. So
racism 101.
Yeah. Just to finish the quick recap of Lovecraft's life of what I know. So his dad was in the sanatorium. He didn't know the real reason. He wasn't able to visit him, and then his dad died, and he was at home with his mom, and who also had a lot of nervousness and mental issues, and they had a love-hate relationship with each other that sounded not healthy. And
wait, Lovecraft and his mom?
Lovecraft and his mom.
Okay.
He was an outcast at school because, I don't know, he was like so smart and precocious and weird. And he was just had a lot of melancholy. When he was 18th, he had a mental breakdown. He ended up moving to New York with a journalist that he got married to, and she ran a hat shop. And this is where the germ of the horror at Red Hook comes from, because she was like, I'm going to run my hat shop and I'll support your writing, because he wasn't making any money. But then it ends up the hat shop didn't do as well, and then he had to go back to Providence, and they pretty much like split off from each other. That relationship was ended. He moved back home to Providence and became a recluse and wrote all of his like Cthulhu mythos stuff later on in life. One of the things that LaValle talks about is that while he was in New York, supposedly he was so scared of immigrants or so uncomfortable around non-aristocratic white descendants that there were stories of him, like if he was on the street and he was going to pass an immigrant or a black person or whatever, he and his wife would then walk in the middle of the road to avoid them, which is something we see happen today, right? But it's that whole thing of like, don't even want to be near them, don't even want to, who knows what could happen if I were to pass within close proximity of a savage, right? Is the way these people think. So yeah, he didn't really like women. He didn't really like anyone who wasn't aristocratic and white. And he was he lived alone. I don't think he had many like personal friends, except when he started to publish in Weird Tales magazines. Then he started to get a circulation of other writers, including Clark Ashton Smith, who writes really cool stories, and other people like that, who they were essentially amateur writers sharing their stuff. And so he died penniless, but a couple of the writers who really liked his work made sure it lived on, and then posthumously, obviously now there's Lovecraft and American horror completely intertwined, right? So yeah, he was kind of lived a sad, dreary life. There's a really good article about him that I will post in the show notes that gives you a little bit more insight into his life and kind of these sad things that happened to him, which sucks, makes me sympathize with him, but also fuck you, dude, excuse. You asshole.
Yeah.
He was a teetotaler, racist Puritan, so he was a dickhead, but he wrote some cool stuff.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he came up with such a cool mythos, because I was saying to Dan before we started recording, I was like, it'd have been cool if it was someone else, because then this person could just fade away into history as he should. But unfortunately, he will remain because he had this cool aspect of him. But yeah, it's the same with Rowling, I guess, right?
Yeah, I feel like, unfortunately, like it would be hard to separate, like have it be a different person, besides the obvious reasons that it would be a different person. But I think a lot of what makes his mythos cool is definitely layered in his racism, because part of it is like devolving humans.
Well, it came from his mind, and his mind was a jerk, but still.
So that's a little bit about Lovecraft and how. So Red Hook came out. He wrote it when he moved away from New York back to Providence, but it was about his experience there because they lived very close to immigrant tenement areas. Where was it? Queens? I don't know.
That's what I think you said.
I think so. So, they were around a lot of that squalor in that time period. So that's why he has this.
And that time period being the early 20th century.
Yeah, the Horror at Red Hook was published in 1927, so he was in New York, I don't know, before that. But
he's one of those weird authors where I always think that he's older than he is, that he was writing in the 19th century, like late 19th century, but
yeah, he was born in 1890, so he started writing in early I guess it's still early 20th century. Yeah. Okay, so now that you have that backstory, let's get back to what we're talking about today, the Ballad of Black Tom, which is a much better story than the Horror at Red Hook.
The best part about this Lovecraftian story is that we got the Ballad of Black Tom out of it.
Yeah. Okay, so as I had mentioned, the Ballad of Black Tom has two characters specifically from the Horror at Red Hook, which is Detective Malone and the main antagonist, Robert Sidon. And then we get a new character, and this is Charles Thomas Tester, a.k.a. Tommy Tester. And he's a young black man living with his father in Queens, right? They're in Queens? No, they're in Harlem.
No, they're in Harlem.
That's right. Yeah, they're living in Harlem. Do you want to set it up?
Isn't Queens like a white neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know New York.
I don't know New York either. And it's changed.
Yeah.
Why
don't you, I feel like I just talked a bunch, so you want to introduce Tommy Tester to us?
Sure. I liked him right off the bat. He's clever and not intimidated by the whiteness of New York, but he also is very smart and knows how to keep his head down and navigate the racism that he's surrounded by. But he doesn't shy away from going and doing what he needs to do in order to survive. So when we first meet him, he's walking around with his guitar case, and he's like, I don't know how to play guitar. I don't even have a guitar in here. But it creates a good persona that makes it seem as if, it's like a cloak of invisibility, right? Like, oh, it's just a musician, and it makes him less threatening when he leaves Harlem.
Yeah, there's a cool setup here. So his dad, who he's taking care of now, was a laborer. I forgot what kind of laborer, but his body's just destroyed. And what's crazy is he specifically mentions that the dad's like 42, which is how old I am, but his
too young
body
to be
is
crippled.
Destroyed, right?
Yeah.
And his dad is kind of like, why don't you also be a laborer? And he's like, how about not? Because there's, first of all, no loyalty to black laborers. Like, he brings up a couple of examples of people who got hurt on the job or whatever, and then are just like let go, right?
Well, yeah, and his dad, didn't he say they like filled his job like the next day?
Yeah, and there's no like pensions or retirement funds or anything like that. So he says, hell no, I'm gonna hustle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do something that won't destroy my body and maybe make some extra money doing it.
And he certainly makes some extra money right off the bat.
Yeah, I liked this a lot because he's not very good at playing guitar. His dad's really good at playing guitar, and he knows like one or two songs, and he's fine. Not a great singer, and he knows if he plays in Harlem, he'll be like kicked off the street because there are a bunch of really good blues players around Harlem that play in Harlem, right? They're going to be like, dude, you're terrible. What are you doing? But if he goes to a white neighborhood and he has the guitar case and the suit on and he plays something that is an approximation of what white people imagine black blues to sound like, they're going to be like, oh, look, a blues man. this is so cool. So then he can start hustling white people. I
just love that so much.
Yeah.
Take advantage of the right people. Like, they're idiots.
But it is really interesting, though, right? Because doing something around people who know nothing about that, it's easier to impress them because it's a whole new thing to them, right? But as Amber had mentioned, he doesn't even have a guitar there in the beginning of the book. Instead, he's carrying an occult book because part of one of his hustles is that he delivers hard to find objects to people.
Yeah, it sounds like Fever House.
Yeah, I just thought that as I said that. And he brings this occult book to the wonderfully named Ma-At, which is a tall, gaunt white woman in the white part of Queens. And she gives him, what, $100 for it or something?
And no, it is a lot of money, but I guess maybe I'm not exactly sure how much, but it was at least like 6 months worth of rent.
Yeah.
So I want to say it was like...
That might have been from Sidon, though, because Sidon gives him like $400 later.
True. I thought she gave him a decent amount.
Yeah, I think she did.
But then Sidon gives him like $100, and it's taken by those thugs, and then he's offered like $400 more. So yeah, maybe I'm mixing it up. But regardless, she gave him a lot of money. It was enough for him to be willing to make the trek at night. Or was it during the day? Oh God,
I'm not sure.
Probably
during the day if he's in a white neighborhood, I'd assume.
Right, because it was like, ooh, and you don't want to be seen out at night.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But what's cool is they have a cool line in here about how hustling the arcane. The book that he's delivering is an occult book, and he knows that there's like weird shit in there, and you shouldn't read it or even look at it. But he also doesn't want to give an occult book to this white lady, and he doesn't know what she's going to do with it. So he asks his dad, who can't read, to take the last page out of the book, just so like the spell book isn't complete. And since he can't understand what he's looking at, he can't go crazy. So
very clever.
Yeah, he takes a page out and then delivers the book. So that's one case of occult stuff moving around, him getting money in the white neighborhood. And then later on, he's playing blues, I think still in this neighborhood, or maybe it's Flushing Meadows. I'm going to mess up the different places.
I don't know New York well enough to have remembered. Sorry, East Coasters.
But
you can laugh at us Californians out here.
He's busking in a white neighborhood, and then our main antagonist, Robert Sidon, who's like some old guy who, has arcane knowledge and all this kind of stuff, and has been hanging out in the tenements with the immigrants, and people are like, how come? Because he says he's studying those cultures and things like that. So Sidon sees Tommy Tester playing guitar and is like, hey, I'm having a party. Here's like $100, or I think maybe even $200.
No, I think it was 100 as like up front, and then he was going to give him 400 more.
Like just come play at my party. And he's like, holy shit. And then right when he gets the money, and then Sidon walks away, he gets shook up by these two cops, one of them being Detective Malone. And this is really interesting because he's shook up by Malone's sort of partner, Howard.
Shaken down,
yeah. Just
shaken up would indicate he's scared, but I think it's more
shaken
of
down.
a shakedown.
And they take his money.
Yeah, a robbery by police.
And Malone's like not shaking him down, but he's complicitly watching this happen. And they're kind of like...
Because the other guy is a PI.
That's right, yeah.
And they're kind of working together, but you can tell Malone's not really digging this other guy very much. He seems like, at first I thought, oh, maybe he's less of a douchebag, but he's just a different kind of douchebag.
Yeah, he's a little more polished. Malone, part of his backstory is that he is also interested in history and kind of occult adjacent things. So he's kind of like a cop that's not great at being a cop and is uncomfortable with the hard knock ways of his sort of partner, but also, allows his partner to do these terrible things without commenting on them.
Well, now it starts to get weird, right? So he goes back home and builds up the reputation of how hard it is in the black neighborhood and scary. And didn't he say he got the book from like the scariest, like,
the Victorian Society, I believe it's called.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, it's super shady and dangerous, and really it's just like a gentleman's club, which if you don't really know what that is, like in England, if you're wealthy and have status, it's basically a club just where men go and like smoke cigars and eat meals, and it's basically that in New York. And so he laughs about that. But now he goes back to Sidon's and just starts to get weird.
Yeah, it's great because he does end up getting a guitar because of this money he's getting from these white people. He's able to actually go out and buy a guitar. And there's some cool scenes where like his dad is teaching him songs and how to sing better, and like there's a little bit of a relationship building there.
But it's also a place to hide stuff.
Yeah, it's also a place to hide stuff in his guitar case, and in his, I think he puts money in the guitar. That's right.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
So the way the book is set up is it's like 175 pages. It's under 200 pages. About the first half is all Tommy Tester's point of view, and then it switches to Detective Malone's point of view, who was the main character in the horror at Red Hook.
I actually really liked it when it switched voices. I liked it from Tommy's perspective, but I thought it worked really well to be from Malone's, especially towards the end.
Yeah.
When Tom starts to become like another entity in a sense.
Black Tom.
He becomes Black Tom, yeah. And I really appreciated that voice change or that perspective change. It worked really well for me.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's cool, the ending with the first part with Tommy. I guess I won't spoil it, but any Lovecraft readers who have read Dagon, it's totally a shout out to this. It's the same ending, and it's just really cool. It's just one of those little nuggets where I'm like, I know where you got this part from.
It's called the Easter egg, right?
Yes. It's just fun when you get the Easter eggs, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I love that. As long as it's not blatant, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it is, but in a way that works.
Well, I didn't catch it.
Well, you haven't read Dagon.
Well, there you go.
So you wouldn't. It's a small thing. Anyway, it's cool. It's a cool ending. But essentially, Tommy goes to the party and like plays the blues, and they end up waking the sleeping king, I think they called him in this. Yeah, and weird shit happens when he plays the music and all this. And then when we shift to Malone's point of view, there's like obviously a big shift in the story because it's a totally different character. But some major shit goes down. And we learn about how Tommy gets the guitar from his dad, because Malone's partner, Howard, they end up going to the apartment and getting into, well, I guess is it a shootout if only one person is shooting?
No, that's called an execution.
It's just a shooting. But the dad is normally bedridden, rarely gets out except when Tommy takes him on a walk to the Victorian Society to get food. But according to the cop, he went into the apartment and saw Tommy's dad, Otis, in the corner in the bed holding something that looked like a weapon.
In the dark room.
Yeah, so he shoots him, unloads his magazine, loads another one, unloads that, right? Just like shoots him, who knows,
egregiously
15, 20 times.
Overdone.
Yeah, as police are wont to do, unfortunately.
I did it in self-defense 14 times? Okay.
Yeah. So the thing that his dad had in his hands that might have been a rifle was a guitar, and it's smeared with his dad's blood, and then he ends up getting it, and that's the guitar he plays at Sidon's party, which when things go shit and he becomes Black Tom. So it's a cool little detail. I mean, it's a tragic detail, but it's cool what's going on there.
It explains why that shit would go down while using that guitar.
So yeah, we don't want to spoil it all for you because it's a novella. It's really quick to read. So, just read it if you haven't already. But we are going to spoil the end. Okay. Maybe I immediately take that back. But I want to talk about the ending for Malone, which is really fascinating. So, a lot of cool stuff happens. It says novella. It's quick to read. You'll get there. You'll get through it. But the ending for Malone between the horror at Red Hook and the Ballad of Black Tom is very interesting. So, in the horror at Red Hook, in both of them, we get Malone looking back, and he's like, I don't know, a destroyed person. And in the first one, it's because he gets involved with this police raid where the tenements come crashing down on him, just like in Ballad of Black Tom, and he's exposed to cosmic craziness, and he kind of loses his mind. That
looks up at a building and freaks out.
Yeah,
I loved that scene in both stories.
Yeah.
He's just like looking up at this building and like runs into the street and falls over and is like having a panic attack. And onlookers are like, what is this guy?
Yeah, I think Lovecraft is at his best, I feel like, when the protagonist's mind is just totally unraveling. And that happens to Malone in both of these. But what's interesting is in Ballad of Black Tom, he has to wear dark goggles, like when he's looking back on the story, because Black Tom comes out and cuts his eyelids off. Part of what's been interesting about the commentary about this book is that the cutting off of his eyelids is punishment for being complicit to this like violent racism by his partner and just being okay with it, right? Like he now must bear witness to these terrible actions that he's been complicit in.
Yeah.
And he goes crazy because of the cosmic experience, right? But like,
it might affect some people. I don't know.
So it feels kind of steampunky to imagine this character with, I don't know, dark shades on. I'm imagining, the like steampunk goggles.
But also Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, Clockwork Orange. So both books end with the tenements crashing down because what they essentially find out is that Sidon is doing this cosmic worship shit with these immigrants that are coming in. So the police come in, there's a big raid, and the structure isn't sound and it collapses. And in the Ballad of Black Tom, it's great because they really show this part. The police bring in, I don't know, like huge Gatling guns.
Oh yeah. Well, and I thought it was just amazing how he got them to show up, because he's like, they have illegal immigrants, they're selling drugs, they're stealing children, and like the police force is just like, no, this is impossible. We can't put up with this. We're going to bring like the military in to shut this down.
There's definitely truth in that, like overwhelming police force against black and brown neighborhoods, right? Especially at this time against immigrant tenement neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And so it's just
it's over the top. It's over the top lies and over the top response, but it's also realistic because we often see over the top response.
And what's so fascinating is that Malone gets his eyelids cut out, and then Black Tom disappears essentially. But Malone is given the highest honors or at least is awarded and recognized for his bravery because he's the only one who survives the ordeal of everything coming down.
Yeah, so they can't prove that he was full of shit.
Yeah, so he's celebrated, but then also not like forced into exile, but he moves to somewhere in Rhode Island, I think, as like a sanatorium, and it's just keep him out of view. He's got those weird goggles, and he's all screwed up from this experience.
And now people are crossing the street to get away from him.
Oh, look at that. Interesting.
And that's when he has his freak out with the building, looking up at the building thing.
That's right. Some of the background information I could be confusing between Horror at Red Hook and Ballad of Black Tom.
Oh, I've been there with one of our books for sure.
So excuse me if I've...
Reading the sequel,
Yeah. I mean, if I didn't say it at the top already, again, I would say if you're going to start Lovecraft, read the Horror at Red Hook, only if you plan on reading the Ballad of Black Tom to see how they speak with each other.
Yeah, don't read it for the fun of it.
Yeah, if
it's not fun.
Yeah, if you're just going to read Lovecraft, start with like Dagon or Shadows over Innsbruck or Call of Cthulhu, and that's the good stuff. Still some racism in there, but the writing's cooler. Okay, we need to get you in here. So I'm going to hand it to you by saying, when LaValle wrote this story, he was explicitly thinking of Black Lives Matter, or I don't know. I should not say Black Lives Matter because this was published in 2016. Before then, so he was thinking about the conversation that Black Lives Matter brought to greater national attention, but it was this feeling of I want to talk about
police violence against Black people.
Yes, there you go. Thank you.
Say their name was the thing before it was Black Lives Matter.
That's right. And originally he was planning on releasing this based on another author had done this, and he had seen this happen. And it was like, oh, that's cool. Tweeting this out one sentence at a time. And
that would have been interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad that it worked out this way because obviously it's done very well for them and it's been successful. They wrote it in 2 weeks. So it was, which sounds really cool. LaValle said usually, he needs years or whatever, but this was just one of those stories that popped in his head.
It's meant to be.
And just like blasted it out, and then planned on doing a line at a time on Twitter just as a fun thing. But then somebody, I forgot who it was. I think it's a writer I was familiar with, but oh, that's right. A writer convinced him, like, talk to somebody about it.
Oh,
and he
familiar.
Talked to Ellen Datlow, the editor,
right,
at a convention.
She's
and she was like, yeah, I'm interested. Send me this. And then it became published.
Lo and behold, here we are.
So we got some money out of it.
I actually, back on our Twitter days before its imminent doom, I followed an account that every day would publish one sentence from Ulysses by James Joyce.
Did they ever finish? How long would that take?
I think it had been going for a few years. Like, I think it had repeated almost like it should have been Finnegan's Wake, but maybe it was Finnegan's Wake. I can't remember now. It was too long ago, but you just reminded me of that.
The exact opposite of that, and something you would probably hate to do. I just read an article about how there were some people, I think it was on the East Coast somewhere, that were part of a community read Moby Dick in like 72 hours or something like that. So it was like everyone got together and like binged that book.
That's very opposite of the one that I've looked at with reading Finnegan's Wake, or maybe it was Ulysses, and it took them like 25 years
That's
in
crazy.
like a book group, and they'd get together like once a month and discuss.
Probably some cool conversations there. So back to LaValle.
Did you have a point there? You brought up the Twitter thing. I felt like you were going
I mean, the point was more just a little bit of the backstory about the publishing of this book. Originally, he was like, it's just a story I banged out, and I'll, release it a sentence at a time on Twitter, thinking it was, just he'd only spent 2 weeks on it, right? So...
But he knew his stuff.
And he also
a fan of Lovecraft his whole life. That would be pretty easy to do in some senses, I would think. He just has that knowledge.
He had some hesitation about it essentially being Cthulhu plus violent police action against Black lives, right? So it was like Black Lives Matter plus Lovecraft. Does anyone care? And it turns out that, yes, people care. And they're glad that he did it. And if I may make another anecdote about the author.
Sure.
So his debut short story collection, Slapboxing with Jesus, he talks about it in a really interesting way. So he released that, and the way he describes it, it's kind of like urban realism, Black characters, kind of down and out, right? That's simplifying it. I haven't read it, but anyway, urban, hard living Black lives in short stories. And he gave it to his friends and stuff like that. And one of his friends responded to him and was like, they all liked it. But his friend is also like, hey, we had good times too. Like, we were also happy. Basically saying Slapboxing with Jesus is good, but it's like really, it feels like it's just the hard aspects of Black lives in the city, right? And then LaValle took that and went on and said how, as a writer, it's, especially as a Black writer or any kind of minority writer, or, a woman or Native American or anything like that, you have like an avenue you can take. So he, as a Black male writer, could say, I'm going to write like, I don't know, Langston Hughes or James Baldwin, and write about the difficulties of Black life and contemporary living, right? And do well, because that's a lane that's been created for me. But the problem is, then you're basically taking somebody else's light. You're living in their reflection, and you're kind of doing a genre that's already been established. And so this is something LaValle thinks about a lot, and where probably the horror influences came in to give him what he felt was a more singular voice. So it wasn't just like, Black man writing Black man in the city stories. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I have a quote.
Okay, yeah, go on. I've been talking for a while.
That's okay. You're a monster then, Malone said. I was made one, was Tom's response. I feel like that fits.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, at the end of this book, so essentially Black Tom, because Tommy Tester becomes Black Tom, and you'll see how that happens, cosmic stuff, he chooses cosmic annihilation over the aggressions of, normal human society. It's like, I'd rather, another line he has in there, I have to paraphrase, but he's like, I'd rather take Cthulhu over you motherfuckers. I think that's wrong, but the intention is correct, right? Like, I'll take my chances with the deep old gods because you white people are like,
can't get much worse.
Can it get worse, right? Which is really fascinating, and I'm glad that the story was successful because it's cool to see, a merge of something that we think about contemporarily in terms of like police overreaction and those sorts of conversations we've been having, and then put it on top of a story written by a racist teetotaler. So I don't know. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And I always enjoy a book that is in response to something and does a good job with it, because then you can not necessarily erase some of the negative stuff, but fix it in a sense, like improve upon. For instance, the story is a huge improvement from the original, because the original spent most of its time just spewing racism, instead of this book is confronting it and pointing it out, but also responding to it as opposed to feeding into the monster. It's like, well, you created this monster. I'm just responding to it. And I like that a lot. And it's like fan fiction, but like your fan ended up being better than you. You almost feel bad, but then you remember who the author is.
I think I had read somewhere that Lovecraft didn't even really like the horror at Red Hook. I'm guessing he didn't not like it because he was like, oh, this is too racist. I think it just wasn't one of his favorite stories that he wrote. He thought that he had gotten better later, which I agree with. So
to clarify a point you said earlier about this being the first Lovecraft I've read, technically that's true, but I think it was last year, the year before, our friend John lent me his Call of Cthulhu graphic novel that was illustrated by Gao Tanabe. And he actually gave me another one for Christmas this year that I haven't read yet.
That's in the Mountains of Madness, or in the Mouth of Madness?
In the Mountains of Madness.
That's right. That looks cool.
And so, in a sense, I have read more than just this, if you consider a graphic novel version of it.
Yeah, and
that was actually really good.
Yeah. So. And The Fisherman was clearly cosmic. It is cosmic horror.
I like cosmic.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting concept. I'm just not a fan. There's so much good stuff to read out there. Why would I actively choose to read something that is incredibly racist? I struggled with the chapter on whiteness in Moby Dick, and that was, it was still racist for sure, but that wasn't the point.
Yeah.
This is the point for Lovecraft. So, Anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that I had read a little bit more.
You know what it is too? It's one of those things where, because you haven't engaged with Lovecraft that much, specifically, it's easier to be like, no, I'm good, right? Like there are musicians or, I don't know, writers, whatever.
It's not like Harry Potter, where I loved those books and then discovered that she's a mad turf, and you're like, oh, how do I shift perspective now?
Yeah.
That's a lot harder to do. Yeah.
Yeah. When you find out someone sucks and you haven't engaged with their stuff, it's easier to be like, well, I'm just not interested. Yeah.
I'll take the bits that I want from it, and the rest can fuck off.
Yeah.
And that is 100% how I feel about Lovecraft. Like, the imagery of Cthulhu is awesome. I like the idea of like the cosmic underworld demon.
This book definitely makes me want to read Lovecraft Country, which we have on our shelves.
Oh, I watched that show.
Which was written by a white dude, but is about a black dude going through the South plus Cthulhu, something like that. We watched
the South plus Cthulhu. I don't know which is worse.
I don't know.
What year was this? 1954? Yeah, probably the South is worse.
Yeah, we watched the first couple episodes of the show. a while ago, but it is still, using the Cthulhu mythos while directly discussing and tackling on Lovecraft's racist qualities.
And I guess on the other side of the coin of just not engaging is that there is the ability to positively engage, right? Like reading this book or watching that show and like seeing the response and being able to point those things out and say, hey, look, this is not okay. And we can make it more okay by changing and removing stuff, but also not removing. Because I know that's like a big conversation with Mark Twain stuff, right? Because there's the question of, is he making fun of racism? Is he racist? Regardless, he has the N-word in his books. Do you change the verbiage of his book? That's a debate for another day. But being able to positively engage with negative topics like this, I guess there is that side of it.
There's a book that came out a few years ago. I forgot the name of it. It had got good reviews, though. That is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from...
Oh, yeah.
What's the black guy's name?
James.
Oh, you read that book.
I read it.
Oh,
it was
how
really,
was it?
It was really, really good.
What's the black guy's name?
Jim.
Jim, that's right. Yeah, from Jim's point of view.
James,
Do we have that book, or did you get it?
No, I listened to the audio book. I think while I was playing Power Washer Simulator.
Nice.
Because I have this weird association of like a theme park, and I think it's from that game. Anyway.
Huh. Oh, cool.
That was a fun read. I really enjoyed that because it's from his perspective, and at some point they get separated and he has to deal with, his side of it. And the story, they change it a bit, I think. I haven't read Huckleberry Finn in a long time, but in James, they're pretending that at first that James is Huck's slave, and yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that they have to play with. And it's funny because when I first picked that up, I didn't even realize it was a retelling of Twain's story. But I'm also not so sure with Mark Twain. Like I think I'm kind of in the boat of, he of course was a man of his time, so he was inherently much more racist than we are today. But I feel like in today's world, he'd be an ally. Maybe that's...
I hope so.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's a different conversation.
I wouldn't. I am glad H.P. Lovecraft never got a microphone. I mean, I guess in a sense, his writing is his microphone. But
maybe he'd be our president right now.
Oh God. He wanted I read a little bit about his political thoughts. He wanted an aristocratic ruling class was his ideal. Which I guess he didn't read much about medieval history.
Yeah, why didn't he just go back to Europe?
Well. Yeah,
go live under the monarchy.
Yeah.
God.
What you been reading? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I have a couple of books this time around. Still very busy with work, but getting in a little bit more than only our podcast book in December. I read the second book of the Dan Jones trilogy that I started recently, that takes place during the 100 Years' War between France and Germany. God damn it. Wow, Amber.
All those facts were wrong.
All of that was wrong.
Please keep that in.
I am 100% keeping that in there. So it's the second book of a trilogy by Dan Jones. It's called The Wolves of Winter, and it takes place during the 100 Years' War between France and England. And it's about English soldiers who went over to France to try to take over the French crown because England at the time believed that it should have gone to the King of England. Great time period. One of my favorite times to read about in medieval history. And this book ended right before the Black Death came to town to visit. So I'm now reading the last book. And I'm really enjoying it. But last time I brought it up, I was talking about the ridiculous swear words or cussing that they came up with. or that Jones came up with. I don't know if he like researched this. Probably not. He probably just came up with these. These were the only two that I wrote down, and there were definitely some better ones. But let's see. We have Jesus fucking Christ in bed with his own twin sisters, and Holy Mary riding bareback. The Lord could send the rapture, and you'd still be here at the end of it. In reference to one of the characters like still being in France, and it's like, why? Like, how are you still alive? Why haven't you gone back? You've been here long enough, So again, he's one of my favorite popular historians in general with his nonfiction. So that's been a really fun sidebar for me. For my book club book in the Horror Writers Association, our chapter this month, we're reading The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. So I read that and I didn't like it. I think for me, the shorter the Stephen King book, the shorter the Stephen King book is, the less likely I am to like it. I feel like I really like his long form, and his short form just leaves me unimpressed sometimes.
I read that book, I don't know.
It's a baseball book.
A while ago.
It's like a girl lost in the woods, and Tom Gordon is a baseball player. He's a real baseball player, and he really did play for the Red Sox, but in the book, he's like a character. And it was interesting because at the end, King had an author's note, and he was saying Tom Gordon in this book is a character, and he said, and I understand the characterization of becoming a famous person because of my writing, so he's experienced that at this point when he had written this already, that he was a famous person, so people assume they know what he's like. And so that was an interesting take, but it wasn't my favorite. I don't know. But I got to read it. Someday I want to have read all of Stephen King. So it's one
keep on reading because he keeps on publishing.
I know. Come on.
Don't stop.
Like, slow down. No, not really. And then I'll have to move on to his son. He used to keep the
Joe Hill, right?
Yeah. Because he's just as prolific. Okay. And then lastly, I saved my favorite for last. I read Old Wounds by Logan-Ashley Kisner. And that book was loaned to me from my friend Janice. She's like, I just picked this up at the bookstore and read it and loved it. You should read it. And I had been trying to read it for months, but because of how busy I had been, I hadn't gotten around to it. And I just devoured this book. I stayed up late to read it because it was the only time I could read, and I loved it. It's about two trans kids, or I guess they're teenagers, and they both were opposite gender, dated. The one of them started transitioning to female, and then later the other one started transitioning to male, which is it's an interesting dynamic to see them dealing with how their transitions were different based on family, society, all those things. But then on top of it, they get stuck in this small town America. They're scared about being caught, as trans people, because that is incredibly dangerous in some areas. But then there's this like beast that they find out. I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, so skip ahead if you don't want it. But they find out that there's this beast that the townspeople feed women to. And so then the question is, well, will the beast attack the trans woman? Will the beast attack the trans male? Will it attack either of them? Will it attack both of them? When are you considered a woman, and when do you lose that title? So it was a really cool, really cleverly put together.
He just
book.
eats both of them.
Yeah, I mean, you have to read it to find out. But I loved the characters, and it was just a really, really good conversation with trans horror. So highly, highly recommend that. I might make you read that next season. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's what I read. Still reading Goosebumps with the little one. That's it. So what about you? What are you reading? Or have you read?
I am halfway through another science book. I followed up a science book with another science book. And that science book is The Sixth Extinction, an Unnatural History by Elizabeth Kolbert. And she is I think a New Yorker journalist who did the research for this book. I think that's how it works. And it talks about how there were 5 mass extinctions, which my son knows all about. He's like, he saw the book and he's like, yeah, there were 5 mass extinctions. Let's talk about them. I know what they are. Come on. And I'm at the point, a lot of
he's like correcting you as you're reading it.
He's flipped it open and has read a page and he's like, oh, I know which extinction she's talking about here, which is just crazy. But she's talking about I'm at the halfway point. So a lot of it has been talking about the previous extinctions. And I think it's going into how we are living through the 6th extinction now, right? Because an extinction event is, could take place over hundreds of thousands of years. But one of the examples she gives in the very beginning of the book, she talks about this species of frog in Latin America that just suddenly like died out very quickly because of, I think it ended up being like a fungus or a mushroom or something like that. And it just like made that species just totally collapse. And I think she's going to go into more examples of that and how this is the first major extinction event that is human caused, right? So, fun stuff. It's a bit of research for the book that follows up the book that I'm working on now. It's giving me some good ideas.
Oh, here I thought you were reading it to help with our son's science project.
I mean, it does have that benefit. No, this is an acid rain research book.
That is hilarious.
But yes, that lines up nicely with that.
So you're just trying to connect with your child. Like, nah.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm a good father. And then, so I'm halfway through that. I better be done with it by the next time we do this. But we did have some family, and I've been playing a lot of Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 because it is so fun. God, I love Warhammer. Anyway, I'm going to finish that up. I've also been reading the Tao Te Ching, which I think I've brought up before. This is a book I just like go back to every now and then, usually when I'm feeling distracted. So I had a week where, I don't know, it was like during COVID and Black Lives Matters, where there were some times where it's just like I could not stop following the news, right? Because just so many intense things are happening in such a short order. And I got kind of stuck in that news cycle for a week of just, like all the ways that our democracy is being dismantled in front of our eyes.
Yeah, it's happening all over again.
And it's
a continuation of.
Yeah. So, and it's tough because I want to know what's happening, but also like psychologically, like to just, you can get into kind of an addiction spiral, right?
Yeah. And burnout. Yeah.
And then you don't have energy for more productive or creative pursuits because I'm so tired about learning about how our country's being dismantled, right? So this is one of those times where I take out the Tao Te Ching, which is a translation by Ursula K, Guin, who's one of my favorite authors. And it's essentially just a book that it's the Force, essentially. Way cooler than the Force, but it's like the way
you mean
is
Star Wars.
Yes, Force. Yeah. This is like where this came from. I don't know if it's directly from that, but it's like you follow the way, and the following the way is be like water. You don't push, don't try for things. Just let them happen. Be like a baby. Like
be like a baby.
Yeah. There's a few of it, like be a baby. The baby is the best.
Do you want me to swaddle you?
But just like curious and accepting and just observing without judgment and all that kind of stuff. And it's very much like be like water. And sometimes it feels like reading these, they're poems, I guess. It feels like meditation through reading, and they're really cool. And the legend behind them, I'll just give real quick because it's the only other thing I've been reading, is the writer was, I think, Lao Tzu is maybe how you pronounce it. And he was from the 6th century BC in China and was an archivist for the Zhao, if that's how you pronounce it, Zhao dynasty in court. And as the legend goes, he was tired of court life and decided, like, I'm just going to leave and become a hermit. And on his way out, the guard, like the gatekeeper, recognized him and was worried, like, oh, if this guy becomes a hermit, we're going to lose all this knowledge. So, hey, can you please write down your wisdom? And then, the Tao Te Ching was born. And it's really cool. Everyone should read it. Yeah. So, and it helped. I started reading that about a week ago, and it's just the whole thing of like, be cool, be like water, be a baby. I'm like, okay, I've stopped my addiction spiral.
That's why you've been crying. You've just been and pooping yourself.
And then lastly, I'll mention this again. There was a good Lovecraft article I'll put in the show notes. It's funny. The article is actually written about a beer some brewery brewed that's Lovecraft inspired, but then they give a history of his life, and it's I think it's an interesting read. Goes over some of the stuff that we've touched upon, and yeah, that's been it.
Awesome.
So what's next?
Yeah. So speaking of trans horror, we are reading You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. I started this the other day, and it starts with a bang. Literally. Actually.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, so this one's going to be, I haven't gotten terribly far, but it's going to be an intense one, I think. So I'm looking forward to it. I've been wanting to read this one. Actually, I'll let you all in a little secret. We rearranged some of our calendar for the end of this season, in part because I wanted to get this book on here. So I haven't read it yet, other than starting it. But yeah, so that's what's up next. You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White.
And then after that, we have The Watchers by A.M. Shine,
which coincidentally posts on St. Patrick's Day.
Yep. And is an Irish book and an Irish author. So excited for that. And then after that, we have Victorian Psycho, and that kicks off our month of Psycho. We got a lot of reading to do that month. Got to put down Space Marine for a little while.
Starting that one, Victorian Psycho actually will publish a day late. It's going to publish on Wednesday so that it will publish in April.
Yeah, so we'll have Victorian Psycho, followed by Psycho, followed by American Psycho, all in April. That's going to be fun.
And it's the correct week allowance. We're not skipping ahead on that. But
yeah, don't worry. You're getting more, not less.
Lots of psychos. We're going to be psychos by the end of it, I think.
Yeah, probably. American Psycho is a pretty long book, it looks like. But that's what we got. So we got more coming for you. And we're excited for the next one. We'll see you for You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. Until then.
Well, if you've made it this far, then we didn't scare you off. Thanks for listening to Dusk to Dawn, reading horror and weird fiction.
Please rate our podcast, and if you like, follow us on Instagram at Dusk to Dawn Podcast, which is also our Gmail address. Tell us what you liked or didn't like about the show, and let us know if you have any book suggestions. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.